on From Knowledge to Action, Empowering Senior Leaders Through Strategic Learning Interventions. I introduce our speaker, Mr. Amit Barua, Director at XCD Executive Development. Mr. Barua is a senior leader with over 23 years of experience in the areas of learning and development, training and facilitation, training management, executive education, team management, and project management. A huge round of applause for Mr. Barua.
So, very good morning to all. I'm Amit Barua. You'd see that the topic of my session this morning is From Knowledge to Action, Empowering Senior Leaders Through Strategic Learning. Now, why this topic, why does it say from knowledge to action? And, I'll build upon our experience of working with multiple medium and large organizations, MNC organizations in India and across the globe. And when I say across the globe, we do extensive work in the UAE, in South Asia, and in North America, including other than in India. So I'll build on all of that experience to kind of talk through over the next about 15, 20 minutes that I have. So we've been seeing across work that we do with medium and large organizations is that for senior leadership roles, sponsors of programs and sponsors of learning interventions are again and again coming back and saying that learning needs to be action-oriented. It needs to have actionables, and it needs to have measurable actionables. And across organizations, we are actually seeing it that it is ruthlessly being driven, that it needs to have actionable outcomes. It just can't be something where folks come together into a room, learn something, and then go off, and then there's nothing that happens after that. So therefore, we say it's knowledge to action, and I'll delve into a little bit more over the next couple of minutes here. And one point there is that when I said sponsors of programs, and when I'm referring to sponsors of programs, I am not referring to the HR department or the L&D community. I'm actually referring to the businesses, the business head, and maybe the CEO's office when I talk about sponsor of a learning intervention, which is at senior leadership levels. Transformation is old news. The future is industry convergence. Do we agree to this? And for example, if I take an example of a bank, for example, if I'm a bank today, I am actually not worried about as much about competition coming in from the bank next door, as much as about maybe the technology firm or competition coming in from the unknown, which could be the technology firm next door, which could be an edtech firm, which could be a retail store. Yeah. So, and we are increasingly seeing this in our engagement with banks and financial services companies, and when we do diagnostic study exercises for them. In fact, there are banks today globally who don't have a single branch at all, and they're doing very well. And when at some stage you wonder, is it a technology company or is it a bank? Maybe it's a mix of both. They need to move towards more of a technology company rather than also being a bank. And some of these banks that we have globally, in fact, they are doing very well in terms of customer experience management. Far better than many banks who may be having a lot of branches. So yes, definitely industry is moving towards convergence. It's not that in isolation, if you are a bank, you would look at competition only from a bank, etc., and so on and so forth. So that's one bit there. Then now India's generative AI landscape, the AI market is projected to surpass over 17 billion by 2030. Now, again, AI is a great skill leveler. Now, I'll maybe give an example here. And we have, in our L&D community, we used to have a role which is that of a content writer who would produce, put together content, typically for a lot of our asynchronous learning work that we would be doing. Today, that role is, in fact, more or less redundant. Because with ChatGPT coming in and AI coming in, so on, the difference between a good content writer and a not so good content writer, that gap has almost diminished. So yes, AI is a great skill leveler, and therefore, with that in context, what are the new skills that are becoming more and more relevant today? And these are the power skills. And what do we mean by power skills? Power skills is typically the ability to be maybe able to influence somebody, the ability to take somebody along with us, motivate a bunch of people, to show strategic direction to a team, to a group of people, to negotiate well, to be able to influence well, to be able to persuade well, to be able to show compassion, care, etc., etc. Now, a lot of skills can be taken over by AI, but this power skills is something that AI can't replicate. So yes, power skills are becoming more and more relevant in today's context. And therefore, what does Josh Bersin have to say about skills that are required by CXOs? He says that CXOs require breadth of skills and depth of skills. And when we say breadth of skills, we are talking about skills like client consulting, project management, etc., and so on. And when we talk about depth of skills, we are talking about negotiation, executive selling, channel management, pipeline management, and so on. Now, in this entire context, let us look at it from the perspective of our traditional learning structure and format, which is we start something with something called learning needs assessment. At our end, we call it a diagnostic study. Then we move on to learning design and development, thereafter implementation of that learning solution, and then finally program assessment, which is extremely key in today's context. I'll talk about each one of these, and again, as I said, from the context of our experience of working with numerous medium and large organizations globally. Now, when we talk about a diagnostic study, typically for senior leadership levels, we are typically talking about a situation where the objective of a diagnostic study is to align the senior leadership learning intervention to the near, medium, and long-term goals and strategies of the organization. Which means when we talk about a diagnostic study, the best practice is, and that we look at where is it that the organization is wanting to go in the near future, near term to the medium term, 3 years down the line, 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line. What are those goals and objectives that the organization is chasing from a business perspective? Now, to be able to meet those goals, what are those capabilities that the organization requires? What are those capabilities that are already available within the organization? And what are those capabilities which need to be honed, which need to be built, and therefore that gap? So, and the better that we do this exercise, the better will be the buy-in for senior leadership learning interventions. So what we are saying is that we are talking about a situation where an entire learning intervention is linked to where the organization wishes to be 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, strategically. So it's a means to achieve a goal, and it's a means to an end, and not an end in itself. So the entire learning intervention is designed to meet that requirement of the organization, is to help that organization be where it wishes to be 2 years down the line, 3 years or 5 years down the line. Now, typically, what's the format of diagnostic studies that's worked across organizations and firms? And what we typically recommend is that A is collecting secondary information, and B is primary information. And in secondary information, we are talking about looking at strategy documents of the organization. These documents give us a sense and an understanding of where is it that that organization wishes to be 2 years down the line, 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line. Looking at those strategy documents and also looking at available competency frameworks that may be available for the group for whom the learning intervention is being envisaged. And once we've done that, then we do either one or a mix of all these. And when we're talking about in-depth one-on-one interviews, we are actually talking of 360-degree interviews, which is one-on-one interviews with members of the HR community, with the senior leadership of the organization, the senior-most leadership, maybe if possible at the CEO's office himself, to understand particularly where is it that he wishes to see the organization, where is it that he wishes to drive the organization towards, and then interviews with the prospective folks for whom the learning intervention is being planned, and reportees to those prospective participants or for whom the intervention is being envisaged. And for the reportees per se is to help us understand are some of those actionables that are being taken, are they moving towards actually helping the organization achieve some of those goals, or do they see gaps when it is? It's basically for us to understand the gap between what the senior-most management wants and what's typically happening there at where the rubber meets the road, for example. Now, having looked at a very robust diagnostic study, we then go on to the design. Now, design could be something which is, it could be something which is as short as about a 2-day or a 3-day or a 4-day intervention. Now, these would be event-based interventions. Generally help solve a particular task at hand, a strategy workshop, a plug-in for a particular job at hand, task that needs to be completed, and so on and so forth. But what we are also seeing increasingly is a requirement for journeys. And a journey is typically a planned developmental exercise. A journey could be something which is a 4-month or a 6-month or an 8-month or a 10-month journey. Typically, when we look at a journey, there are a number of things that we can then build in. For example, if we've, for example, done a Hogan assessment, or maybe an MBTI or a FIRO-B at the start, then we could build in executive coaching throughout that entire journey. We could build in action learning project work. We could bring, and I'll talk a little bit about action learning work a little later in the next couple of slides. We could bring in action learning project work. What we could also do is that we could put people into specific tracks that they go on with the entire group, and then they go on to, depending on an outcome that may come out of a Hogan or an MBTI or a FIRO-B that we would have run on those folks, that may have given out some specific gaps, specific areas that need to be addressed for an individual A or an individual B or an individual C in that group. And for those specific individuals, we could, while they're going on a track which is common to all, we could put those others on a track which is an individual track, which is something, for example, maybe an elective track. You could also put in groups of people into a track, which is, if, for example, if we are a conglomerate, then we can and across businesses that we may have, then there is a group that may go onto a common track that they will attend with all of the participants in the groups for whom the learning intervention is being done, and there could be specific divisions within the organization who could go into clusters of learners who could be put into separate tracks. And those could be, for example, a cluster for the engineering group, a cluster maybe for the realty folks, a cluster maybe for the lifestyle folks, etc., within the same group. So these kinds of tracks become possible, typically when we are talking about a journey. Asynchronous learning becomes, specifically useful for senior folks in our experience is when you want to give them some depth of knowledge in a specific area, which maybe is very specific to him or her, not related to the rest of the group. You put them on those kinds of tracks. I spoke about that. And all of this, you can typically also look at blending it into various formats. And lastly, something that stands out and has, every time we engage for senior leadership interventions is industry, is immersions. And maybe I'll give an example here. For example, if we are taking, in an entire journey, if there is a leg that may be happening, for example, in Singapore, then how about, and in that entire group, if there's, for example, is a requirement which the people are learning, which is around operational excellence, then how about taking them to somewhere like a Marina Bay Sands? Now, why a Marina Bay Sands? One may ask, why a Marina Bay Sands? Now, in Marina Bay Sands is known to have, the highest occupancy rates across premium hotels across the globe, as high as 98%. That's very, very high. And again, the waiting time at the check-in counters on the ground floor of all of those towers are among the lowest in the entire globe. So you have a situation where the folks at Marina Bay Sands hardly have enough time between somebody who checks in and somebody who checks out, so for them to be able to get the room ready and get the room done up before the next person checks in. And to top it up, they have an additional issue that they grapple with, which most hotels don't. And what is that? Marina Bay Sands, the rooms are placed vertically. And you have these laundry/cleaning rooms which are placed on some floors. And what happens, these cleaning folks have to therefore move up and down the lift to move into rooms. And that takes a lot of time. That against most good hotels where the rooms are placed horizontally and there is one laundry/cleaning room on every floor and the cleaning folks move within the floor. So with all of these challenges and constraints, yet how are they able to achieve what they're achieving? Now that's typically operational excellence at its zenith. Now if you are able to take these learners, senior learners, to a Marina Bay Sands, get them to experience this, get them to see it hands-on, then that kind of a learning is something that they will carry with them for a long, long time. Particularly because most senior learners are kinesthetic learners, which is learning by doing. I'll just take another 20 seconds. What do we see this? We see this here, that there is an AI, and then there is an instructor, which is a real instructor, and an AI instructor. So maybe going ahead, down the line, we could have virtual instructors who may be taking sessions. We have a situation here where replica users fell in love with their AI chat box. So if one can fall in love with an AI chat box, maybe down the line you wouldn't be close to an idea of having a personal coach, an AI-driven personal coach. Implementation, one wouldn't mind a certificate from an Ivy League with a wonderfully designed program. We bring in these Ivy Leagues from across the globe in this part of the country. An Ivy League faculty whose content is well researched, networking opportunities that they look forward to, and a location where they experience best practices. They go out as an opportunity to also experience best practices outside. And lastly, in impact assessment, we all know all of this. Happy sheets are at level 1, program impact assessment, level 2, peer coaching is typically between a level 2 and a level 3 of a Kirkpatrick's model of learning evaluation. Executive coaching falls in level 3 because we're tracking behavioral change. Action learning projects at level 3 and a level 4, just 5 seconds. Action learning projects is typically when a group of people are actually working to either reduce cost or increase revenue, pertaining to their organization. Shark Tank projects are projects where they are actually working on projects to get funds from the leadership of the organization to help them take the organization to the next orbit of growth. Those are Shark Tank projects that you can build into a learning intervention. That's all from my side. Thank you so much. Would be happy to have conversations at our booth. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure interacting with you all this morning. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Amit Barua, for sharing your thoughts and insights. To do the honors, I would like to invite on the stage Mr. Amit Saxena, Head of Learning and Development at Compass Group.